So we are recording. Welcome everybody who is here live. Welcome everybody who is listening to the replay, or if you're listening to this as a podcast episode, welcome to you as well, because I want to announce today that I am not actually going to do a Q&A. There were 23 questions, but I'm not doing a Q&A. And the reason why I'm not doing a Q&A is I'm going to teach you a masterclass instead. And the reason why I'm going to teach you a masterclass is because as I read through the questions in the group, I realized that each and every question could be answered by exactly the same answer. And I realized that if I answered the questions, I was just going to be repeating myself over and over and over again. And so I thought, you know what, rather than doing a Q&A, I am going to teach a masterclass, and I am going to teach you what I believe everybody who had a question and everybody who doesn't have a question, but what every single person, every single woman who is attempting to change her body needs to understand and needs to know. And that is what we are going to be discussing today. So in this Q&A that is not a Q&A anymore, we are going to talk. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal journey. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal experience, my personal journey, and what you need to know for your journey moving forward from this program. Because even if you're listening to this as a podcast, this is being recorded live to the 8-week butt camp challenge group. This is the last week of the butt camp, and there were a lot of questions about, how do I maintain? How do I keep moving forward? How do I go on holiday without derailing my progress? How do I continue with these calories until I reach my goal? How can I eat a little more? How many times a week do I need to train? And so as I read all the questions, I always run through the questions, and then in my head, I kind of answer them in my head, if you like. And so as I was answering them in my head, I was like, okay, I just need to do something different today. So and first of all, I apologize as well for not being available on Tuesday. I just had a very, very important business meeting that came up at the last minute, which I needed to take. But anyway, we're here today, and I think it was meant to be because I think you're really going to enjoy what I have to teach you today. So I actually don't have a title for today. I usually have a title whenever I'm going to teach a masterclass. I don't have a title, but this will all unfold as you as we get going. And I guess if I had to come up with a concept or a title today to kind of give you a little bit more information about what I'm going to teach, it's really, the title of this masterclass is not only how to achieve how to completely transform your body permanently. The principles of this masterclass could also be applied to any area of your life. So if you are trying to build a business, this is applicable. If you are trying to build an Instagram following, this is applicable. If you are trying to build a better relationship with your husband or your wife, this is applicable. The concepts I'm going to teach here are applicable to all areas of life, but specifically to body transformation. So let me go back to the very beginning. So I want to take you back to April 2016. So almost exactly 10 years ago almost to the month, but not quite. Exactly 10 years ago, I was a skinny yoga teacher. And some of you will have heard this first story that I'm going to teach, but it's always good to hear it in a different way, which is what I'm going to be teaching now. But I was a skinny yoga teacher. And the reason why I was a skinny yoga teacher 10 years ago was because I did not know any other way to change my body composition other than dieting. That was it. That's all I knew. So anytime I had ever in the past achieved what I would even think of as my perfect body, it had been when I was super lean. And I had been really, really lean in my early 20s. Whenever I was riding horses semi-professionally and I was in university, I was super lean. I would have been like an American size 2, so a UK size 6. Really, really, really lean. And so it looked like I had some kind of muscle mass because, I was so lean you could see my muscles. But after that, I went on then to meet my husband, and you stop riding horses and put on a little bit more body fat. And then I had 4 kids, and I always got kind of back to my, leaner shape between kids. But whenever in 2026, my youngest child was 5. And I had gotten into teaching yoga. I'd been practicing yoga for many, many years and had gotten into teaching yoga. And the only way that I knew to achieve the body of my dreams, which is what I had been searching for my whole life, was to diet. Okay. I had no idea I always knew that building muscle was important, but I did a lot of yoga. So I used to talk about having long, lean muscles, but really all I wanted to be was thin. And so I had managed to achieve a pretty low percentage of body fat. And when I say pretty low, I mean, I didn't have like shredded quads or anything because, obviously that would have actually been almost near starvation because I didn't have big quad muscles at the time. So I never would have had big sculpted legs. But I had managed to shred my body down to being pretty lean, except I still had kind of a pocket of fat around my stomach, around my middle. No matter what I did, no matter how lean I got, I never got abs. And when I say lean, I had like a really bony chest. I had like this dip in the middle of my breastbone, which I actually have at the minute because I'm so lean, and bodybuilders will generally have that whenever they're stage lean. So I had like all of the markings of being super lean, but I did not have a shredded stomach. I didn't have a six pack. No matter what I did, I couldn't get rid of this jelly, fatty, kind of watery base. That's what it felt like when I pinched it, layer of fat around my belly button. And I, at the time of this story in April 2026, I was eating about, I would say, between 1,000 and 1,200 calories a day consistently. That was it. I spent most of my life starving because I was determined to stay skinny. And I used to pride myself on the quote of, food never tasted as good as skinny feels. And I loved that quote because I really felt like I was achieving something great by overcoming the need to eat, and I was like, this is how I stay super lean, is by not eating any white starchy carbs and not overindulging in food. And I really prioritized protein. So I would have got up in the morning sometimes. I would have had a protein shake in the morning. Then I would have taught 3 hours of yoga. Then I would have had a protein shake at lunch. And when I mean a protein shake, it was protein, ice, and water. That was it. There was nothing else in it. And so I would have had one of those at lunch. And then in the evening, I wouldn't have eaten anything in the afternoon. But I lived on black coffee. And then in the evening, I would have made myself a pretty substantial meal, but it would have been, pasta made from zucchini or courgette. So like courgette pasta. So like no calories in it whatsoever. And, again, loads of lean protein. So either tofu or seitan or something pretty lean. But it would have been a very kind of voluminous, but very low calorie meal. And I spent most of my life starving. But I did not know any other way to change my body. And so what happened then was I was sitting in my office one day. I was trying my best to build an online business. I've been trying my best to build a business for a while. I decided to transition into yoga. I was trying to build an online yoga business. And I remember it was one afternoon, I was sitting in my little office and I had my niece in who was helping me look after the kids. And it was cold and it was dark and it was January and it was after Christmas. And I was just feeling, kind of like, bleh, right? Just as you do after Christmas, you're white, well, depending on what, maybe Christmas, if you're in Australia, you're not going to be white, you're going to be lovely and tanned. But certainly in Northern Ireland, the weather's pretty shit in January. So I'm sitting in my office and I'm about to finish. It's like 4:45, I think. And my niece was looking after the kids until 5. And so for some reason decided to have a quick scroll through Facebook before I finished, as you do. So I'm scrolling through Facebook and this picture comes up in my Facebook feed, and it's a picture of Emily Skye, the fitness model Emily Skye. And a picture of Emily comes up in my Facebook feed, and she is looking tanned, gorgeous, sculpted. Like you can tell Emily has muscle from these photos. She has a beautiful, lovely big butt, right? Gorgeous glute muscles. You can tell from the picture that she's got, good quad definition. She's got nice shoulders. She's not like super ripped or anything, but you can tell this girl trains. And I remember looking at the photo going, oh my God, she looks amazing. Like this is how I want to look. This is how I've always wanted to look. Now you're talking 10 years ago here. So I don't even know that Instagram was a thing. I think Instagram was only just beginning to become a thing, but you never really saw, apart from in magazines, it wasn't like social media was as big as it is now. So you weren't constantly bombarded with these perfect images of perfect bodies and whatever else. And I'd never been to a bodybuilding show. Apart from in magazines, I'd never seen bodybuilders. But I saw Emily Skye this day and I went on her Facebook page. She had like 10 million followers on her Facebook page. And I was like, holy crap, this girl looks amazing. And I was like, this is how I want to look. So I started stalking her on Facebook and started stalking her on Instagram. I started looking at, or actually just Facebook, I think it was. I started looking at all of her pictures. And then I went on the internet to find her. And I found out that she, had a website and you could purchase her program. And it had 3 different components to the program. It had a home the first part was each component was a month long. It was a 3-month program. The first component was like an all over body program. The second component was focusing on upper body, shoulders and back and sculpting your upper body. The third part of the program was focusing on your glutes, right? It was legs and glutes. And I remember looking at it and it was, I think she had it on special. It was normally $197, but it was on sale for $97. I didn't even think twice about it. 147 maybe it was. I didn't even think twice about it. I just purchased it immediately. And I was like, right, I am going to do this girl's program because I want to look like her. And so this is in January, right? I didn't, in 2016, I didn't end up doing anything about it. I just like stalked her pictures and was like constantly obsessed with looking at all of her pictures and looking at her images going, oh my God, I want to look like that. I want to look like that. This is incredible. I want to look like this girl. So I didn't do anything about it though until April of that year when I walked into my yoga studio. I had a little yoga studio at home, walked into my yoga studio to get something from one of the drawers. I was wearing a thong and a sports bra and the light was streaming in through the window. And I remember it was kind of bikini season was nearly upon us. And I turned around to examine my glutes in the mirror, right? I wanted to see what my glutes would look like hypothetically in a bikini that year. And as the light was streaming in onto my glutes, I could see that there were some stretch marks appearing on the glutes and my butt just looked kind of sad and saggy and a bit flat. And as I looked at it in the mirror, I thought, because I'd lost so much weight, I thought, oh my goodness, my butt is beginning to resemble an old woman's. I'd always had a lovely, full, big butt, right? And my daughter has exactly the same body shape as me. And I was taking pictures of her in bikinis the other day so she could see what they look like from the back because she's going on her first girls' holiday alone. And I was looking at her bum thinking, oh my God, my bum used to look like that whenever I was 16. But because I'd lost so much weight, it had all gone. And my butt was now looking like an old woman's butt. That's the only way I can describe it. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God. And I looked at my glutes and I thought, if I don't fill these glutes up with muscle, this is going to get worse. I had this epiphany that the only way I was going to change my glutes was by filling them up with muscle because I'd already lost all the body fat. There was no more body fat to lose. And I wasn't prepared to fill my glutes with fat. So I thought, I'm going to have to fill my glutes with muscle. So what I did was I went to the program that I purchased from Emily Skye and I downloaded it and I said to my husband, I am starting this gym program the next day. And so he was like all excited because he went to the gym every day, professional rugby player his whole life. So he printed the program out for me, put it in a lovely little booklet and put a picture of a gorgeous butt on the front of it, sweet as he is. And I decided that I was going to do this program. And I was so excited because whenever I looked at this program, I realized it had a home program and a gym program. I was like, I can train from home and look like Emily Skye. And the home program had things like, Bulgarian split squats and this kind of stuff. But it didn't actually say to lift any dumbbells or lift any weights, or maybe it did and I didn't read that. But I was like, this is incredible. I can't believe that I can get this body at home doing these really simple exercises. And I would go into the chair in my room. We would go out, say, for dinner, and I would say to Ryan, I have to do my workout first. And I would be doing these Bulgarian split squats with just body weight and then doing like hip thrusts with just body weight. And I'd be like, I can't believe this is all it takes to have this incredible body. Like this only took me like half an hour and it wasn't even hard. I was like so excited that this was all that it took. Oh, how delusional I was. I was in the stage of uninformed optimism. And so anyway, I realized I did this for a couple of weeks and then every day I would look at my glutes in the mirror and I would realize that my glutes weren't really changing, but I definitely was like, surely I should be seeing some change by now. So I thought maybe I need to go to the gym and like lift, a bit heavier. So I started going to the gym and I thought I'll do the gym program. So I did the home program for a month at home and I was like, okay, well, this program's a month long. So surely at the end of this month, I'm going to look like Emily Skye because, if she wouldn't create a program that was 1 month long, if you didn't have her butt at the end of 1 month, right? She's going to give you what it takes. So delusional. I genuinely thought that you could have that amount of muscle that she had in her butt after 4 weeks. Not true. So anyway, decided to go to the gym, started training in the gym and started doing, hard and heavy workouts in the gym, or as hard and heavy as I possibly could, or what I thought I was doing. Like I was doing, hip thrusts. I was learning. I was like, I didn't know about, putting the plates on the barbell. I was like trying to wiggle, a bar, like a 20-kilo bar onto my hips. And I was, thrusting it, thinking I was, lifting heavy. And I was, deadlifting, what I thought was heavy. And I was squatting with like 30 kilos, which is 66 pounds. And I really thought, oh, this is heavy. And I didn't feel confident to go any heavier than that. And I saw my husband one day warming up with his weight of 40 kilos. I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I would love to be able to squat 40 kilos, like it just seemed so heavy at the time. And every day I was examining my glutes in the mirror every day. And I remember after a month of what I thought was hard and heavy gym training, I remember looking at my butt in the mirror and saying to my husband, do you think my butt looks any different? And he was like, obviously, like, what is the correct answer here? I don't want to say, yes, your butt looks bigger in case I get into trouble. I don't want to say, no, your doesn't look any different because I don't want to derail you. And he was like, I'm not really sure. Like, what do you think? And I was like, I don't think it looks any different. And I remember just being completely disheartened by this. It was like, why does my butt not look any different? I thought, I know, okay, I've done a month at home and now I've done a month at the gym. Maybe I need to find myself a trainer because I'd really gotten into the bodybuilding, really gotten into the gym training. And I thought, I really love this and I'm really good at it. So maybe I'm going to find myself a trainer. So I find myself a trainer who happened to be Laura Hutchinson, who you'll all know, our director of training, her ex-husband, Curtis. So I found him online, sent him a message, said, I want to get into bikini athlete shape, but I don't think I actually want to do a bikini show. And he said, great, I can train you. Let's go. Let's do it. And he said to me, how many days a week can you, commit to training? And I went, well, how many do I need to? And he went, well, you need to be here 5 days a week. And I was like, 5 days a week? And he's like, yep. And I went, 5 days a week in the gym with you? And I said, well, how much do you charge? He said, £30 an hour. So I was like, that's £150 a week. And I thought, well, I'm earning good money teaching yoga. I'm going to commit to training with Curtis. So off I went to the gym. 5 days a week. And I remember at the time Curtis saying to me, because I was telling everybody I was training with Curtis, I was posting on Facebook. A couple of my friends then started, messaging him. And I remember him telling me, he said, oh, your friend Ali messaged me. She wants to come and train with me. And she said to me, I just want to do whatever Kim's doing. And I was like, did you tell her I'm training 5 days a week? I remember being like, so like, oh, look at me. I am incredible because like anytime I'd ever trained in the gym before, I'd only ever gone intermittently, I'd gone like twice a week, 3 times a week, once a week. It was just going to the gym was a place that you went. It wasn't a structured program for me in the past. It was a place that you went. I went to the gym, and half the time when I was at the gym, I spent most of my time on the fucking cardio machines because I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't following a program. I kind of randomly went from machine to machine, not really knowing what I was working or what I was doing. So I remember him thinking like, well, did you tell her I'm training 5 days a week? Feeling like so smug that I was training 5 days a week, not realizing that is normal. That is a normal amount of training for someone who wants to change their body. Okay. It's just that I had never trained 5 days a week. So I had absolutely no idea. So I started training with Curtis 5 days a week. And then I decided, you know what? I am going to do a bikini show. And I said to him, I want to do a bodybuilding show. So we're now in July of 2016. And for those of you who have joined, by the way, you're like, is this a Q&A? This is not a Q&A. This is a masterclass I'm teaching today. So try and keep up. I'm still at the start of my story. So I said to him, I want to do a show. And he said, great. That's a really good goal. And he said, we'll aim for one next year. This is in July. And I went, next year? And he goes, yeah. And I said, why not sooner? He was like, because you're nowhere near ready, Kim. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've been training for 3 months now. He's like, Kim, you need to train for years to do a show. And I was like, but why? And he said, because it takes that long to build muscle. And I remember being like, I'll show you. Like I'm a type A. I can do hard things, I can make things happen. I'm that kind of person. So I decided that I was going to be the anomaly to the rule, right? I was going to be the person who built more muscle than anyone else. So anyway, I worked my ass off for the next, from July until January. And he said to me in January, okay, there's a show in April. If we continue to work super hard between now and April and you shred and do your diet, you will be able to stand on stage in April. And I was like really excited, right? And I remember showing him a picture of, I started looking up all these bikini athletes and, everybody that I admired online. And I remember showing him a picture of an athlete called Camille. And Camille was like my body goal at the time. And she was an Olympia athlete. She looked absolutely incredible. She was in her 30s, 36, 35, 36, same age as me. And I said to Curtis, showed him the picture one day. I was like, see that? That's what I'm going to look like on stage. And he goes, no, you're not. And I went, what do you mean? No, I'm not. And he goes, Kim, you're absolutely not going to look like that. And I said, why not? And he said, because she's been training a long time. And I was like, so? And he was like, you can't. It is physically impossible for you to look like that. And I remember being like, again, I think I was just completely delusional. I was like, well, I'll show you. And they always say that every successful person needs a degree of delusion in order to be successful. You need a degree of delusion to keep moving forward after setback and setback and setback, because otherwise you would just give up whenever you realize how hard it was. Now, what is the point that I'm making here with this first story? The point that I'm making is, in the beginning, all I had was a hypothesis. I had a hypothesis of, if I train this hard, I can look like this, or I can have this amount of muscle. Why was it only a hypothesis? It was a hypothesis because I had zero data. When you have data and you've done something before and you've done it consistently, either for yourself or others, then you can make a prediction as to what outcome you're going to get. But whenever you have no data whatsoever, which is what I did not have, all you have is a hypothesis. Curtis had a lot of data. So when he looked at me saying, I'm going to look like this, he categorically 100% would have bet his life on it, said, no, you're not. Why? Because he'd been training for a long time. He'd been training a lot of bikini athletes for a long time. He had trained he'd been to many bodybuilding shows. He had a lot of data. So he was able to say to me, you're absolutely not. All I had was a hypothesis. And that is what I see happening an awful lot in the groups of women that I teach here, especially in the shred programs and especially in the company. A lot of women that I teach have a hypothesis of what they're going to look like, or what results they're going to get, or what body they're going to achieve. And they set out in the 8 weeks, or the 4 weeks, or the 6 weeks, or the 12 weeks, or the 12 months, or whatever program we launch. They set out with a hypothesis. And that hypothesis creates excitement. And it keeps you going, right? It keeps them going. No one here, of course, just the people who are not on this call. But it keeps them going so that they keep moving forward. Because if someone said to you in the very beginning, there's absolutely no way you're going to achieve that ever, unless you were completely and utterly delusional or defiant, you would just give up in the beginning, right? So you need to have this hypothesis to keep moving forward. But this is what I see a lot in the groups. Women have a hypothesis of what they are going to look like. And unfortunately, then they're disappointed whenever they get the data. And the data doesn't match up to their hypothesis, because there's reality and then there's what we want reality to be. And unfortunately, as human beings, we have this terrible condition or affliction, which is when our hypothesis doesn't match up to reality, we get disappointed. We get disappointed and we get upset because what we wanted to happen hasn't happened. We get very attached to the outcome. We get attached to the body. We get attached to the shred. We get attached to the result. And if we don't get the result or we don't get the outcome, we get disappointed. Rather than recognizing, oh, wow, I had a hypothesis. My hypothesis was incorrect, but now I have more data as to what I can achieve in 4 weeks, or I can achieve in 8 weeks, or I have more data that someone can give me a 1,200 calorie meal plan, but dear God, they can't make me follow it. Or I now have data that despite having a 1,200 calorie meal plan and a very simple 30-minute workout and a very simple 30-minute cardio, I can't actually show up and do that 5 times a week. But I know I can show up and do it 3 times a week. I know I can stay 60% consistent to the diet. Instead of looking at what they have achieved and what they can do, they look at what they wanted to happen. They completely skew the data of what they didn't do, right? The work that they didn't do that they should have done. And then they get disappointed whenever they didn't get the result. Now, how do I know that this happens? Because I did it as well, right? I stood on stage the first year, and I was massively disappointed with my package. I was not shredded enough because I didn't follow Curtis because I thought I knew better and I could design a better diet. Completely delusional. I didn't follow my diet the way he told me to. I did not have experience in posing. I was doing this crazy helicopter thing with my arm on stage because I was so nervous and I didn't know what else to do. And I stomped around looking like a baby elephant. But you know what? I did my best. I trained hard for a year. I stood on stage. I ended up placing first in my category. And I came 6th in the bikini first timers, which wasn't bad. There was a lot of people. But I came away feeling super disappointed. Disappointed with my package, disappointed with my posing, and disappointed with my body composition and what I had managed to achieve, because genuinely I thought that I could have achieved more. I genuinely thought I could have achieved more. So, but instead of allowing the disappointment to derail me, what I did was I got back on the wagon and I said, okay, I've done it once. Now I want to do it again, and I want to do it even better. So what I did was I set a goal for a year away. So I set a goal to stand on stage again the following year. And I knuckled down hard and I worked my ass off for the next year. So what I did was I went back to the gym with Curtis. I trained 5 days a week with Curtis, Monday to Friday. It cost me £150. I did everything Curtis told me to do. I ate the calories he told me to eat. I meticulously counted my calories. I counted my calories to make sure I wasn't putting on too much body fat. I took all of the supplements. I took the protein shakes. I got as much sleep as I possibly could. I did cardio if he told me to. I showed up and I trained 5 days a week because my goal was set a year away. And I didn't want to feel the same disappointment that I had felt standing on stage the first time. So I set a goal for a year away. And in that year, my body changed immeasurably. It changed immeasurably from the year before. Why did it change immeasurably in year 2? Because I had so much more experience and so much more data. When I first started out training, in the very beginning, when I was training by myself using Emily Skye's program, I wasn't lifting anywhere near my lifting potential in weights. Why? Because I was inexperienced, because I didn't have a spotter, because I didn't understand training to failure. I didn't know anything about rest, pause, or anything about going to failure, pausing, and then going beyond. I did not have enough data. I was a learner. I was a beginner. I was starting out. And so the body composition change that I achieved in year 1 couldn't have been any better because I did the best that I could do being a beginner. But in year 2, I had a lot more experience. I had a lot more data and I had a lot more determination. I had a goal of standing on stage, looking completely shredded, having shredded legs, big glutes. Like I knew exactly what I wanted to look like. And I worked my ass off for the next year, 5 days a week, tracking the macros, tracking the calories, doing the supplements, doing all the things. And then whenever it came to shred time, Curtis designed my program for me and I followed it to the letter. And he went over and above what because last year I hadn't followed his program. He was afraid I wouldn't be shredded again. So he gave me really hard cardio, really hard calories. He really worked me to the bone that year. And I suffered so much. I was starving all the time. The body does not want to be that lean. I was hyper focusing on food. It took so much mental energy to get through every day because I was so hungry all the time. I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day. I was doing HIIT cardio in between my weight training sessions. It was insane. But at the end of it, I stood on stage and I was about 8% body fat. I was absolutely shredded. But I still hadn't achieved my body goal. I still hadn't achieved my body goal. Whenever I stood on stage, I had wanted to have shredded legs. Like that was my goal. I wanted big shredded legs. And I thought if I just train my legs really hard and I do all the squats and I do all the hip thrusts and I do all of the things, next year I'm going to have shredded legs and I'm going to have visible 6-pack abs. I still didn't have visible 6-pack abs. I still had a little pocket of fat around my belly button that I just couldn't shift. I still didn't have shredded quads. And I thought there was something wrong with me. I genuinely did. I thought there was something wrong with me. I was like, I have been training for 2 years now. I was like, I wanted to slam my fist on the desk and be like, this isn't fair. Have you ever wanted to shout that? Have you ever just wanted to be like, this isn't fair? I have been training so hard. I have been putting in so much effort. I have been counting the calories. I have been starving myself. Surely I am due more than this, right? You're like, it's not fair. You want to scream it to the rooftops. It's not fair. But here's the thing about bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is the most unfair and the most fair sport that you will ever indulge in your lifetime. Because you cannot trick the body, outsmart the body. You cannot make the body grow more muscle than it will grow unless you're willing to take anabolic steroids, which I wasn't. You cannot, and even if you do, you can still, let's say you pumped yourself full of anabolic steroids, you still only have a certain window within which to work. You cannot force the body to do more than the body is willing to do. Most of us can cheat. We think we can cheat reality, right? We can talk ourselves out of things. We can reframe things in our mind as to why things didn't quite go our way or something didn't quite work out or I didn't get the job that I went for. We can say, well, it's because, I was overqualified or like we always want to protect our ego. The body wants to protect the ego. So we can always have an excuse as to why we didn't, get this incredible thing or have this thing that we work towards. We can always come up with an excuse. But in bodybuilding, there are no excuses. You get the results that you work for. and you get no more and you get no less. No more and no less. And this was horrifying to me. I am a type A, can push super hard, can be very charming and very sweet, and usually wheedle my way in and out of every single situation. Like, I am a great salesperson. I had spent my entire life genuinely being able to get most things that I wanted. Because I'm a great salesperson. As you know, I am a great motivator. I am a great, I can be very inspirational. I can be very charming. And so I had always been able to kind of get anything that I really wanted in life. And not always by working for it, because I could quite often charm my way into getting what I wanted. And in bodybuilding, there was no charming. No charming at all. And I think that this is why men are much more successful in the sport of bodybuilding than women, because men, rightly or wrongly, are taught most of their lives that anything they want, they have to work for. Men do not have the luxury of being sweet and beautiful and charming as women do. But women are more charming. We're the softer sex. And men are vulnerable and gullible. They're not vulnerable. Men are gullible. Quite often they just want to get into our pants. And so we can quite often bat our eyelids and smile sweetly and be charming and get things out of integrity. Men can't. Unless they are, there are men who are obviously con men and whatever. They can do that. But mostly for men, they work hard and they get a result. So from their little boys, they're taught, you want something, you have to work for it. Women are not always taught that. Women are taught that we can get things by being charming. Like, look at the amount of women who marry rich men. The amount of women who marry rich men is much greater than the amount of men who marry rich women. In fact, the amount of rich men in the world far surpasses the amount of rich women. And I'm not going to start going into why that potentially would be, but it is true. And it just goes to prove the concept that men understand the concept of working for something much more than women do. And whenever I stood on stage in that second year of bodybuilding, I was absolutely disgusted that I had not been able to force my body into submission, to force it into how I wanted it to be. And I couldn't honestly believe that it was taking this long. But the point of what I'm trying to make here was, the point that this particular story is, I set a goal that was a year out. A year out. I didn't set a goal that was 4 weeks out or 8 weeks out or 16 weeks out. I set a goal in April 2017, the date of my first show. I set my next goal for April 2018, a full year away. And then for the next year, I worked diligently. I worked like a bitch. I went to the gym 5 days a week, non-negotiable. I sweated, I pushed, I lifted heavy weights. I worked to the maximum, or what I thought was my maximum capabilities. I counted every morsel of food that passed my lips. I did not overeat. I ate all the supplements. I took them, I timed them. I took L-carnitine before I trained. I took alpha-lipoic acid during the day to help, or before I ate, to try and shuttle more nutrients into muscle and away from fat store. I was on creatine, L-glutamine. I was on BCAAs. I was on, I can't even remember all the supplements I was on, but I was on everything, right? I was on a cocktail of supplements. I was doing every single thing that I could within my power to change my body. And my goal was a year away. And in a year, even doing all the things, I still had not achieved my body goal. Did I let it derail me? No, because now I realized, shit, this is going to take a long time. And I still clearly haven't found the secret of what it is that I need. And so whenever I was away at the show that second year, I brought my posing coach, who'd become a good friend of mine, Emma, with me. And Emma and I didn't know each other that long, right? I'd only started posing with her about, I would say, 6 weeks beforehand. But I said to her, do you want to come to the show with me in London? One of my shows in London. She was like, yeah, fantastic. So she came to the show with me. And she was a competitive bodybuilder herself in a higher category than me. And I remember just before the show, it was the day before the show, she said to me, we got into our hotel room and she said, right, strip down to your underwear and let me have a look at you and let me see how you look. So I stripped down and she was like, yep, looking good. Yeah, but you want to see, is your condition dry? Do you need to dehydrate a bit more? Blah, blah. So she looked at me and she said, and I said, you know what, Emma? I said, I'm just annoyed because no matter what I do, I can't get this kind of fat. I can't make my legs look shredded. And she said, no, you look good. And I said, no, my legs they're just not shredded enough. I want them to be more shredded. And she went, what do you mean, like this? And she dropped her tracksuit pants And I was like my jaw hit the floor. I was like, how did you get legs like that? Her legs were exactly what I wanted my legs to be like. She was 4 weeks out from her show, or 6 weeks out, maybe. She had striations down her legs. Every muscle was visible. They were lean. They were sculpted. I was like, how did you get legs like that? Those are my dream legs. I want legs like that. She said, it's simple. Mark Getty. And I went, Mark Getty? Who is Mark Getty? So she showed me a picture of him, and I was like, oh my God, that is like the biggest bodybuilder I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, take me to your trainer. I said, can you arrange for me to go and meet him whenever we get back to Belfast? She was like, yeah, sure. So anyway, I went to meet Mark, and I went into the gym, and he said to me, so what have you been doing? What training have you been doing? So I showed him my training program, and he was like, you've been doing this? And I went, yeah. And he goes, who gave you this program? And I said, Curtis. And he was like, how long does this take you? And I said, about 2 hours in the gym a day. And he was like, I'm not fucking surprised. He said, you don't need to do any of this. And I was like, really? He said, nope, not at all. So he said, be here on Monday. We'll start training. He said, how many days can you commit to? And I said, well, how many days do you need me? And he was like, well, I need you here 5 days a week. I was like, great, 5 days a week. And this gym was 30 minutes from my house. So I had to drive 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back. So I was like, okay, 5 days a week, I'll go there. So I started training with Mark Getty. And I only thought I knew what hard training was until I met Mark Getty, the biggest bodybuilder. A lot of you will know him. Biggest bodybuilder you'll ever meet in your life. Heavyweight category. He was as wide as he is tall. And for the first time in my life, I understood what training was, what hard training was. I understood why Emma's legs were the way they were. Because after my first training session with Mark, I couldn't walk for 11 days. 11 days without pain. 11 days. For the, like, you know the way they say like DOMS lasts 2 days, and the day after you've trained, you feel it 2 days after is the worst. That wasn't the case for me. My legs were in so much pain, I actually thought that I had damaged muscle fibers. I actually did it there. I was in Marbella on vacation, as you guys know, 2 weeks ago. And I actually did such a heavy back session in the gym. I haven't done a heavy back session in the gym in a long time because I only train with dumbbells. I did such a heavy back session in the gym. I actually did something. I actually strained the tendons or the muscles here in my arms. I couldn't straighten my arms for days. I was actually having to bend down like this to pick stuff up, like bend down like this, because I couldn't straighten my arms. I had to sit and massage them the whole way home on the plane to try to, and then eventually I got them straight to try to force them straight. I think it took me about 8 days for the pain in my arms to go from the back session that I did. Like the pain in my arms was worse than the pain in my back. And so whenever I started training with Mark, I realized what it took to build serious amounts of muscle. Until that point, honestly, I had only been playing. I learned more in the time that I spent with Mark Getty. I spent 5 hours a week with him, Monday to Friday, for an hour every session. And we discussed every single aspect of bodybuilding. We discussed everything to do with building muscle. And Mark is so knowledgeable. We talked supplements. We talked steroids. We talked muscle growth. We talked cardio. We talked high intensity training. We talked metabolic stress versus mechanical stress. Like Mark is one of the most knowledgeable bodybuilders of our time. I always say what Mark Getty doesn't know about bodybuilding isn't worth knowing. And Mark taught me in that next year so much about training, so much about bodybuilding, so many principles, as well as on top of my own study that I had never known. And year 3 was when it all changed for me. Could I have gone to Mark in year 1 and done that kind of training in year 1 and achieved a better body in year 1? Well, yes, probably. But I couldn't have because I didn't know to. Does that make sense? Like, there's no point ever looking back and saying shoulda, woulda, coulda. I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought when I first downloaded Emily Skye's program that I would get Emily Skye's body from doing bodyweight Bulgarian split squats at home. I was completely delusional, but I had no other data points. I didn't know that it wasn't possible. It was only when I went and started training with Mark that I realized this is what it takes to grow enormous amounts of muscle. And when I stood on stage the following year, I was too big for bikini. I nearly got moved out of the category. They actually brought me to the front of the stage and wanted to have a look at me because they were going to move me out of the category, basically disqualify me from the class and put me into another class that I wouldn't have been prepared for. So I ended up winning one of my shows in one class, which actually qualified me for the Worlds that year. And then in another one, they were going to move me out of the class. And they nearly moved me out of the class in the Worlds as well. So I ended up coming 6th, actually, which still wasn't bad. But the point is, I built too much muscle with Mark. I got too big in that year with Mark. Again, no anabolic steroids, nothing, just really, really hard and heavy training, counting every morsel of food that passed my lips, training 5 days a week with Mark. And then I built an insane amount of muscle. Now, I'm not the size now that I was whenever I was training with Mark, because I don't want to be that size anymore. And I don't want to train like that anymore. I am happier now with my body than I've ever been in my entire life. It was almost like I blew myself up with muscle, and then I chiseled away at the muscle to create this, what I can only call masterpiece that I love. I look in the mirror every day and I'm like, I cannot believe this is my body at 47 years of age. But I am now 10 years down the line in bodybuilding. And so, but what that year taught me, I'm just going back to here. The reason why I was able to achieve what I achieved in 3 years wasn't because of the training that I did with Mark Getty, or the training that I did with Curtis, or the training that I did with, on my own, or with Emily Skye, whatever. It was like what I was able to achieve in those 3 years was simply due to 3 things. Consistency of counting my macros and my calories. Consistency of showing up at the gym 5 days a week. And the consistency of training my body to failure. Consistency and patience. Those 2 things, consistency and patience, are the things that most women are missing in their bodybuilding journey. And in fact, not only in their bodybuilding journey, but in their journey of life. It is the thing that women are not taught whenever they're little girls. We're not taught this as little girls. We're not taught that everything you want lies on the other side of showing up every day and doing the brutal, boring work. But it is. That is what causes change, permanent, consistent change in the long term. It's the brutal, boring, daily grind. But the problem with women is we want to have our cake and eat it too. And I'm speaking from experience here because this was me. I wanted to have what was not possible in reality. And I was the kind of person I believed I could force reality to change. I could force reality to be different. But I was humbled by life. I was humbled by my body because I could not force my body to change. I had to work for it. And so what I see a lot in the questions that were coming up in this week's Q&A, which is why I decided to do this masterclass, is disappointment. The overriding thing that I saw was disappointment. And there was a couple of other things which I'll address. But the first one was disappointment. It was like, my body hasn't changed as much as I would like. My body hasn't changed. I haven't, the scale hasn't gone down. I'm not sure what to do. Should I continue to eat the 1,200 calories? Should I continue to do this? Should I continue to do that? Here's my answer to any of you who have a question of, should I? Here's my answer to you. I want you to take your goal, whatever your goal is, and I want you to extend it out to next year. Next year, I want you to say, we are now in March 2026. I want you to set yourself a goal to achieve by March 2027. You have to stop focusing on the short term when it comes to body composition change. And I don't blame you for doing it because you genuinely just don't know what it takes. But I'm telling you now, I'm not here to sugarcoat it. It takes far longer. It takes far more work. It takes far more discipline than you have been applying to get where you want to go. And I'm not saying, I know some of you are going to be like, oh, what are you talking about? I've been very disciplined. And you have. And some of you have been very, very disciplined. But what you haven't been is patient. You're like me. You're like, well, my upper body looks great and my arms look great, but my glutes aren't big enough. Like, Kim, I've been doing all the workouts. I've been doing all the training. I've been doing all the hip thrusts. In fact, this is my 3rd program. I did like buns and guns, and I did butt camp 3, and I did butt camp 4, and my butt still isn't big enough. Like, what gives? My answer is, that's reality. I can't tell you what it is. I can't say, it could be, well, you're not hip thrusting heavy enough. It could be you're not progressively overloading enough. It could be that you are doing too much cardio. It could be like there's a whole manner of things that it could be, but most likely it's just you haven't been patient for long enough. Because do you think that if you followed, let me ask you a question. Anyone here who's doubting the process, do you think if you followed Butt Camp 4, or let's say Butt Camp 3, or Buns and Guns, any of them, let's say you followed Butt Camp, Buns and Guns on repeat for 3 years, every single day, never missed a workout, never missed a day, do you think you might have a completely different body in 3 years? Yes. Why? You'll be like, well, because like if you do something, we're not stupid, Kim. If you do something like 5 days a week for 3 years, you're gonna, you're gonna have a completely different body. Bingo. Exactly. You all know what it takes, but everybody, me included, wants to bend reality to have it now because I get it, right? We're impatient. We want it now. I have a vacation coming up and I had a vision in my head of how I was going to look and the mirror is not reflecting this vision, Kim. What can I do? Change reality for me, Kim. Tell me, give me the magic secret, right? Tell me how many hours cardio I have to do, how many hours training I have to do, what weights I have to lift. There is no secret. There is no magic number, and there is no way to shortcut the process. Some of you are at the very start of your journey. So you will be like, I was a girl on Telegram messaged me the other day and she said to me, I've been following your free workouts on YouTube. And she said, she was actually doing the kettlebell swing. And a lot of people have issues with the kettlebell swing. She said, I just really don't feel these in my glutes. Could you, critique my video? Could you have a look at it? I said, sure. So she sent me the video. I looked at it. And I said to her, firstly, why are you swinging a 2.5 kilo dumbbell, a 5-pound dumbbell? She was like, oh, well, I'm afraid of hurting myself. And I was like, this is a kettlebell swing, sweetheart. If you want to build glutes, you need to pick up something heavier. She was like, oh, right, okay. What would you suggest? I said, as heavy as you can go. She was like, really? I was like, yes, like you're trying to build muscle here, bitch. You know what I mean? Like lift some fucking weight. And so whenever I looked at her video, it was like, I said, okay, your form's completely off. You're bending forward too much. You're blah, 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 whatever. So I gave her, some tips, whatever. But that girl couldn't have done any better than she was doing because she didn't have the data. She was brand new to training. So she'd never done a kettlebell swing before. And she's trying to follow a video online. She doesn't have a trainer in her living room. So her progress is going to be slower than someone who has been training in a gym with a trainer who's saying, lift that heavy weight. Don't be lifting that light one. Away you go. Pick up that heavy weight. Someone who's forcing her to lift more, do it with better form, activate the muscles and able to teach. Those two women are not the same. The woman at home who's lifting the, 5-pound dumbbell and doing the very best that she can with her, not too great form. It's like, no wonder you can't feel it in your glutes because you're not actually activating your glutes in any way. Do you think her glutes are going to grow at the same rate as the woman who's in the gym swinging a 44-pound kettlebell with a trainer critiquing her form? No, of course not. Because not every woman is the same. So whenever I read the questions and they're like, how can I do this? And how can I have this? And I haven't achieved this. And what do I do about this? It's hard for me to answer those questions because I don't know. Have you been following the meal plan exactly? Have you been doing all the cardio? Have you been doing the training exactly as laid out? The only way I can ever advise someone is when they say, I've done all the things and I still haven't got the result. And then I say, well, what result were you expecting? And they say, well, I would have liked to have lost, 20 pounds. And then they send me their pictures. I'm like, 20 pounds from where? The soles of your feet? Like the tips of your fingers? Like you need to focus on building muscle, girl. Like your body is not going to release any more fat until you build more muscle because maybe this person is skinny fat. So a lot of times our hypothesis about what we want is completely out of line with reality. But this isn't a problem because then your next question might be, oh, well, Kim, well, how do I get this personalized help? How do I get this personal trainer? How do I know how many calories I should eat for me? How do I know what my shred calories are? How do I know what my body goal should be? How will I know all these things? What if you just stopped wanting to know? And I know that seems weird, but stay with me for a second. What if you just threw it all out the window and you set a goal for a year or 2 years or 3 years from now? What if your goal wasn't about how much you were going to weigh on the scale or what you were going to look like in your photos or what you were going to look like in your bikini? What if your goal for the next year was, I'm going to show up consistently for the next year. I am going to train with your workouts at home, Kim, and they're going to keep coming for the next year. Like, I'm not going anywhere. You can train with me program after program after program, right? So I'm committing to you for the next year. Are you willing to commit to yourself? That's the question. Are you willing to just show up 5 days a week? Not because you're in buck camp and the training's 5 days a week. And so buck camp says you have to do 5 days a week and you might get a cash prize at the end of it. Not for that. Are you willing to like set all that aside and just say, I am going to show up 5 days a week and train because that is what it takes. I am going to start counting my macros and calories consistently, not by like micromanaging them, but like tracking them. So I can have a cheat day or a day off or a meal off, or I can go out and have some wine with my friends and a pizza when I want, because I know that 80 to 90% of the time I'm consistent. Are you willing to show up consistently for a year and then reassess where you are in a year? And then show up again for another year and then reassess where you are in a year and then show up again in another year? Because that is what it takes. The answer to every single question that was in today's Q&A, even ones about, I'm going away on vacation, what do you suggest I do with my calories between now and then? Or, you know, I still have more fat to lose, what do you think my calories should be? The answer honestly is, guys, none of it matters. None of it matters. Why? Because if you set your goal far enough out, you have time to adjust. Adjust, not adjust. You have time to adjust. So let's say you decide that you're going to go with 1,500 calories and you're going to do that for the next 8 weeks. Great. Do it for 8 weeks. Do it consistently for 8 weeks and then reassess in 8 weeks and see what happened when you consistently stuck to 1,500 calories in 8 weeks. Do it with a curious mind rather than doing it with in 8 weeks, I'm going to have this result. And then when you get there, you're disappointed. Do it with a curious mind. That's how I approached bodybuilding. I approach bodybuilding with, what will happen if I increase my calories to this? What will happen if I decrease my calories to this? What will happen if I do this, right? It's the only thing I ever played around with was my calories. From day dot, when I started training 10 years ago, the only thing that has never changed is the consistency of training. I have trained 5 days a week, 5 days out of 7 for 10 years. It is who I am. It is what I do. It is a non-negotiable. Training, whether it's with dumbbells or in the gym, is part of my life. It is part of my daily habits the same way that brushing my teeth is and washing my hands are. And if I ever happen to miss a day or 2 or 3 or happen to go on vacation, I'm skiing and I don't train for a week, I can't wait to get back to training. Because my body starts to crave the feeling of lifting the weights. It starts to crave the feeling of the achievement that I get from lifting the weights. And that's when it becomes a lifestyle. That is when your body starts to change. So nothing you obsess about now, no amount of calories you obsess about, no questions you have about when you should eat your calories, what calories you should eat, and how often you should train, and what will it take to maintain. Here's what it'll take to maintain. Make it a lifestyle. 5 days a week, guys, non-negotiable for the rest of your life. I'm going to say that again. The rest of your life, you need to commit to training 5 days a week. Now, some people might say, well, I can only do 3 days a week. Fine, 3, do 3. But I think 5 is better, especially as we age. You have to commit to training for the rest of your life. You have to, if your diet is all over the place and you have sugar cravings and you can't, you're falling off and on and you're, eating bagels and cream cheese for breakfast and, and you're totally off and on your diet. Well, you need to get hold of that shit. Stop messing around. Start counting your calories and macros and doing it consistently. Start monitoring what you put in your mouth. Start making food and nutrition important towards your body goal, because everything else is just fluff. All of these questions you have are just, a lot of times they're just ways that we're trying to get out of doing the work and being patient, because it's boring, it's long, it's dressed like work and it looks like work and it is work. It's the same as building a business. People ask me all the time, how do I make $1 million? Like, do you think if this was a club on how to make $1 million in a year, you would be saying to me, well, I mean, would it be okay if I just work like some days? Like, do you think I could just like, because I'm pretty full on with my family and I have to care for my mum. So these steps that you're telling me to make a million, Kim, could I just do it like twice a week instead of 5? Or could I, or maybe like, could I skip this step? But I'm going away on vacation. So like, would it be okay to take a week off? Of course, the answer is yes. But like when I was training for my ultimate body goal, I never took a week off when I was in vacation. I found a gym. I found where the gym was and I went there every day. Why? Because I was working towards a goal in a year. I wasn't going to give up. Yeah, I was on vacation, but training was part of who I was. Like, so whenever I talk about making money, people are like, well, yeah, of course. Like, if you're on a program to make $1 million, like, you're not going to ask, can you take a day off or can you take a week off or whatever? Like, you're going to know yourself well. If you want to make $1 million in a year, you have to stick to the program. You have to apply yourself diligently. You have to do the work. Why would bodybuilding be any different? It's exactly the same. Every single thing that you want is on the other side of showing up every single day, 5 days a week. Track your macros and calories. Take the supplements. Go to the gym or train at home. It's a lifestyle. It's not a short-term thing. And you cannot force your body to change or move any faster than it is willing to change. And you cannot cheat the experience or the level that you're at. You may be at a far lesser level than a more advanced person. And so therefore capable of far less because of your inexperienced. Someone who's been driving for 10 years can drive far better than someone who's been driving for a month or 6 months or a year. You're going to have far more experience. You're going to have far more failures, far more near misses in the car. You're going to know all the hazards that someone couldn't even anticipate because they've only been driving for a year. Give yourself the grace of staying with it long enough to fail and make mistakes and learn, because that's ultimately what it takes. And I know that it's frustrating, and I know you want it to happen faster, and I know you have this goal of having really great glutes and you're annoyed because you don't have them in 8 weeks, but there's nothing I can tell you. There's nothing wrong with the program. There's nothing wrong with you. The only thing that's wrong is you just haven't been doing it long enough. Because if this was 10 years down the line, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Anyone who's been with me from the very beginning, which a lot of people have graduated away from the Sculpted Vegan a long time ago, because they realized after 3 or 4 or 5 years of staying consistent that, oh wow, I don't actually need Kim anymore, because this is my life now, and this is who I am and what I do, and I've got the results that I wanted, and I'm still not there yet, but I'm still working towards it. That's what I wanted to. What else have I written here? That's it. Building a business, building an Instagram account, building a reputation, anything requires structure, discipline, and consistency. The answer to every question that you have at the end of this program lies in setting a long-term goal and working diligently towards it. Doesn't matter if you increase your calories. Doesn't matter if you decrease your calories. Should you stay on 1,200 calories forever? Well, fuck it. Have a go and see, right? How long can you survive on 1,200 calories? And what happens if you do? Are you going to lose muscle? No. As long as you continue to train, you're not going to lose muscle. Also, someone asked a question, does muscle have memory? Muscle never, once you've built muscle cells, once your body's created muscle cells, they never die. They just shrink. If you stop using them, they shrink down and become what's called myonuclei. Once you start training again, boom, they activate and they expand again. So you never lose muscle. Your muscle cells just shrink and then they expand again quickly, which is why once you start training again, if you ever do lose muscle, you just build it back again very quickly because you never lost it in the first place. It just shrank. So that is my message for you today at the end of this program. It is, don't be disheartened by what you didn't achieve. Congratulate yourself for what you did achieve. Whether that was 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, whether you were perfect, whether you fell off several times, it doesn't matter. This 8-week challenge is one step in the rest of your life. Hopefully the rest of your life, no matter what age you are, you should be training till you die. If you want to stay healthy in your old age, healthy and long life, healthy in later life, muscle is the longevity organ of the body. Muscle will keep you living a long and healthy life. You need to make a commitment that this is now who you are and what you do. This is the rest of your life. 5 days a week, you will show up. You will press the magic button. What program should you do? It doesn't matter. There was another question about, could I just choose 1 week from Buck Camp and do it for the rest of my life? Yes, 100% you could. Just progressively overload, add more weight, add less rest. It doesn't matter what you do. It only matters that you do it consistently for long enough to get data on what happens when you stick to something. And then you won't even need me anymore. You won't need to ask me the questions because you'll have all the data. But everybody wants to shortcut the process. Everybody wants to have all the information and all the data now, so because they just think if they had more information and Kim could just tell them exactly what to do, that it would go faster. Well, I told you exactly what to do for the last 8 weeks. And, you know, many of you still didn't have what you thought that you would have. But what you do have is a lot more experience. What you do have is a lot more data. What you do have is a lot more information on what you are capable of and what your body will do when you apply yourself in this way for this period of time. That is data, and no one can take that away from you now. That is yours, and it is yours to keep. So all that is left for me to say is I'm proud of you. I'm super proud of all of you. I really am. It's not easy. Like, what you're doing isn't easy. So I want you to understand that I know that. And I don't ever want you to think that I'm sitting up here on this pedestal saying, train 5 days a week and eat all the calories and, you know, like telling you all that you're totally shit, because you're not. Like, you're amazing. You're here. You've showed up. There's 43 people on this call. At the very start of this call, there was like whenever we first started these, it was like 144 people, 143 people. So, but you're here, you're watching, you're listening, you're diligently applying yourselves. Like you guys are the ones who are making it through. You should be super proud of everything you have achieved, even if it wasn't perfect, especially if it wasn't perfect. Because despite the imperfections, you still decided to show up and do the hard thing anyway. You're still here, hitting the magic button, press and play, getting it done. And for as long as you want to train with me, I will train with you. I will continue to train with you. I will continue to create new workouts. I will continue to be by your side. I will continue to help you on this journey, answer your questions. But I want you to keep in the back of your mind what I've taught you today, that everything you want is on the other side of time, patience, and consistency. And try to set a goal not for 8 weeks now. Try to set a goal for a year down the line and see where you are then. And that's exactly why we're releasing the 4-week More Muscle Challenge, which actually opens on Monday. So the 4-week More Muscle Challenge opens on Monday. And it's not that you're going to have an amazing amount of muscle in 4 weeks. It's that short challenges keep people motivated. This is a challenge that you could purchase and do over and over and over and over again. If you never did another training session, if you never bought another program in your life, the 4-week More Muscle Challenge opening on Monday, starting on March 16th, and there's no cash prize associated with it, and it is a build program. The meal plans are 1,600 calories. And so it's a lean build. But that program, the way I've structured it, is designed to be done forever. You could literally repeat it over and over and over and over again. There's a home gym program, a home gym program, and a home training program with me. So you get 3 different programs with it. And it is designed to be done forever. The way it's designed with the split body parts. You're going to love it. It's my favorite type of training. I feel like I've come home with this kind of training. It's like, for those of you who did Carve with me, it's very similar to Carve in the way that it's done. Loads of rest, hard and heavy training, but loads of rest in between sets. You're going to find it like a complete reset after doing this program, because this one's had a lot of, high impact training. And I know you're all exhausted at the end of it because it was designed as a shred. This one's like coming home. Like, there's even rest in between. Like, if you're doing Bulgarian split squats, you do one leg, then you rest for a minute, then you do the other leg, then you rest for a minute. You even get like a minute's rest in between sets. It's beautiful. And I've had so much fun recording it. And I know that you guys are going to love it, because this is the kind of training that I want you all to be moving into now. This is the kind of thing I want you to be doing. This is what transforms your body and your metabolism and keeps you healthy and strong in the long term. It's this consistency of training. I'm honestly done with shreds. I really am. I'm done with shreds. I'm like, let's focus now on sculpting muscle. Let's focus on changing our body. Let's focus on the longer term process of body transformation and really doing what it takes. And let's do it together. Like, let's do it together. Let's keep transforming our bodies as we get older and building muscle and burning fat and building this incredible community of women that we have, and supporting each other and lifting each other up. Like, I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. I'm so excited for you to see the More Muscle Challenge. Honestly, it's just like, I genuinely feel like I've come home. I really do. For those of you who loved Extreme Body Makeover, you'll love this one. Or Sculpt and Shred, for the OGs of you who've been around for a long time. This is like coming home. You're gonna love it. So anyway, that is all from me today. It's all from me at the end of this challenge. There's not going to be a Q&A next week, guys, for anybody. I'm taking a week off the Q&As. I apologize, but it's always good to have a wee reset. So no Q&A next week, but the Q&As will start up again with the More Muscle Challenge. For those of you who join, we're going to have a private Facebook group. You'll have a customer hub. You'll have, same as this, Q&As will start up again week after next when the program starts. And yeah, it's gonna be epic, and I hope that you join me because we're gonna have so much fun, and you're gonna see how much fun I've had training. It's all taught by me. Amy's not doing any of it. I do the abs. Pray for me. I'm doing all of it. I've taught the abs, the cardio, and the training. And the cardio, you're gonna love it as well because there's no weight bearing exercises in the cardio. There's no TikToks. There's no burpees. There's no push-ups, nothing. It's all cardio on your feet. And it's only 20 minutes of cardio as well. Cardio, I've loved doing the cardio. It's all kind of dance cardio, but you don't have to be too coordinated to do it. 20 minutes of just like having fun, girls together. I've really felt like, oh, the girls are going to love this. Getting your heart rate up. No crazy moves, no fucking mad hit stuff, just like sensible old age stuff, right? Sensible old girl stuff, the cardio. It's going to be so much fun. Team, this was amazing. If you joined late, please do go back and listen to the full masterclass. It wasn't a Q&A today. It was a masterclass based on all the questions that I saw. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you for giving me the space to teach it. I hope this was useful to you. I hope that it was what you needed. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. It was my deepest and my greatest honor to train you and to train with you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the team. I hope to see as many of you as possible in the More Muscle Challenge. But if you don't decide to join, it's totally okay. You have everything that you need to continue your journey with all of the great programs that we have released thus far. But I hope you decide to keep the party going with me and come over to the More Muscle Challenge. And I will have a lot more updates as well on the new app and the different things that we're launching. We're actually, believe it or not, there's been a lot of developments in that, which I can't announce now, but I will announce as soon as I can. But exciting developments, actually, which I think you're going to really love. So I'll just leave you with that little teaser and tell you I'll make an announcement about it again. Okay, team, I love you all so much. Have a great rest of your day. And I will see you all, hopefully, the More Muscle Challenge. I can see everybody waving. Thank you, team. I've loved every minute of our time together. Thank you for being here and thank you for being you. And I will see you all in 2 weeks, hopefully, in the next Q&A. Okay. Sending so much love. Bye for now.